In the Appalachian Mountains, there are stories people don't grow out of. They grow into them. Because the longer you live there, the more you realize. Some of these legends weren't made to entertain. They were made to warn. Across different towns, different families, and generations that never met, the same warnings keep showing up. Don't answer when something calls you from the woods. Don't whistle at night. And if something looks wrong, it probably is. People who've lived in these mountains their entire lives don't laugh at these things. They avoid them, because whatever started these stories never really left. Lock your doors. Put your headphones on. Pull your blanket tight. Take a sip of water before we start. This is Marked Terror, where the most disturbing mysteries aren't just stories. You'll understand that in a second. Something in the trees mimics you. We open this episode with one of the oldest warnings ever passed through the Appalachian Mountains. A story that didn't start online, didn't come from books. It came from people, from those who lived there long enough to know when something isn't right. This isn't new. Accounts of it go back decades, told by older residents, hunters, and families who spent their entire lives near those forests. And no matter who tells it, the detail never changes.
I heard it call my name, clear as day. But there weren't nobody out there.
It starts with a voice, calling your name. Not loud, not aggressive, just familiar. Like someone you trust standing just beyond the trees. At first, it doesn't feel like danger. It feels like confusion, like maybe someone is looking for you. Maybe someone needs help. And that's exactly where people make the mistake. Because in these mountains, there's a rule that isn't questioned. If something calls your name from the woods at night, you don't answer. Not once, not even by instinct. Because if you do, well, that's where the stories stop being stories. People who've heard it describe the same thing. The voice doesn't echo. It doesn't distort. It sounds real. Too real. Like it knows exactly who you are and how to reach you. Some say it repeats your name slowly. Others say it waits, silent, listening, as if it's expecting something from you. And if you respond even just a word at the distance changes, what was far is suddenly closer, still unseen, still hidden, but no longer where it was. And that's when people realize this was never about someone needing help. It was about something finding you. Older residents don't try to explain it. They don't give names. They don't offer theories. They just say this: if you hear it, ignore it. Because once you answer, you're not just reacting. You're confirming. And whatever is out there now knows exactly where you are. But the next one is not a voice. It's something you can see. At first it looks like a deer, but it doesn't move like one. It just stands there watching. And after a few seconds, you realize something worse. It's not scared of you. It's looking at you like it already knows you're next. The not deer. This one doesn't start with a sound. It starts with something people think they understand. A deer. Normal. Common. Something you've probably seen before without thinking twice. Most encounters happen near roads or at the edge of the woods. Late afternoon. Sometimes at night. Someone notices it standing still. Not eating. Not moving. Just there. At first, nothing feels wrong. Until it doesn't leave. You get closer, and it doesn't react. No tension, no instinct to run. That's usually the first thing people mention. It didn't act like a deer. Then come the details they struggle to explain. The way its legs move slightly off, too stiff, or bending at angles that don't look natural, the head turning slower than it should. The eyes locked in, not scanning, not alert, just fixed on you. Like it's not deciding what to do but studying you. People who've seen it don't describe fear right away. They describe confusion. That uncomfortable moment where your brain tries to fix what you're seeing, trying to make it normal, trying to say it's just a deer, but something doesn't match. And the longer you look, the worse it feels, because it doesn't break eye contact. It doesn't move away. It just stays there, like it's aware of you in a way animals shouldn't be. Some say it eventually walks off, slowly, quietly, still wrong. Others say it disappears into the trees without making a sound. But the detail that stays with people is always the same. It knew you were there. Not like an animal senses movement, but like something that recognizes you. And once you feel that, you don't stay. You leave. Because whatever that was, wasn't acting like something that belonged in the woods. And out here, sometimes you don't need to see anything at all. Sometimes, one simple sound is enough to tell you you shouldn't be there. Don't whistle at night. This isn't a story people tell to scare children. It's something older residents say without smiling. No exaggeration, no drama, just a warning. Don't whistle at night. You hear it in different parts of the Appalachian region, different families, different backgrounds. Same rule. And no one gives the same explanation. Some say it draws attention, not from animals, from something else. Others say it's not about calling anything. It's about answering something that's already listening. Because in these mountains, sound travels differently at night. No wind, no noise, just distance. And anything out there can hear you clearly. Hunters used to avoid it completely, even experienced ones. People who knew the land better than anyone. Because once you whistle, you break something. The silence, and whatever was part of it. Some accounts go further. They describe hearing something respond. Not immediately. Not like an echo. Delayed. Wrong. A whistle. Coming back. But not from where it should. Closer. Or from another direction entirely. And sometimes not a whistle at all. Something trying to repeat it. Failing. Almost getting it right. That's when people stop. They don't test it twice. They don't stay to confirm. Because this isn't treated like coincidence. It's treated like contact. And older generations don't debate it. They don't ask what it is. They just repeat the rule the way they heard it growing up. If you're out there at night, stay quiet. Because the moment you make yourself heard, you're no longer just passing through. You've made yourself part of it. And sometimes, you don't even need to make a sound. Sometimes, something is already there, close enough to hear you breathe, even when you can't see anything at all. The hide-behind. This one comes from a different kind of fear. Not something you hear, not something you see clearly, something you almost notice. The hide-behind is one of the oldest stories passed down among early settlers and lumber workers in the Appalachian region. Men who spent weeks, sometimes months, deep in the woods. People who didn't scare easily. And yet, this was one of the things they took seriously. They described it in a very specific way. You never see it directly, not because it's fast, but because it knows exactly where you're looking. Always staying just out of view, behind a tree, behind your shoulder, just outside your line of sight. Some said they could feel it first, that pressure, like someone standing close behind you, watching, waiting. You turn nothing, just forest, just silence. Then you keep walking, and a few seconds later, that feeling comes back, closer. Logs would be found disturbed, tools moved, tracks that didn't make sense. And sometimes men would disappear. No signs of struggle, no noise, no clear explanation, just gone. The ones who stayed stopped questioning it. They adapted. They kept fires lit, stayed close together, and avoided being alone after dark. But there's one detail that stands out the most, something repeated in multiple accounts. The hide-behind doesn't chase. It doesn't rush. It waits for the moment you stop paying attention, the moment you relax, the moment you assume you're safe, because that's when it's closest. And if you ever feel like something is directly behind you in those woods, and there's no reason for it, people who know these stories won't tell you to turn around. They'll tell you to keep moving, and not too slow. And even after all of that, some of the most disturbing stories from these mountains don't come from what's outside. They come from inside, from places people thought were safe, until something decided to stay there. The Bell Witch. This one isn't just a story passed around. It was written down, talked about, recorded, and for a long time, taken seriously by people outside the mountains. It started in the early 1800s. The Bell family lived on a farm near what is now known as Adams, Tennessee. At first, it was nothing dramatic. Strange sounds around the house. knocks on walls, something moving where no one was. The kind of thing people try to ignore, but it didn't stop. It escalated. The sounds became voices, clear, not whispers. Voices that spoke directly to the family, calling names, answering questions, saying things it shouldn't know. That's when it stopped being dismissed, because whatever was there was aware. Accounts from that time describe something more disturbing. The entity didn't just speak. It interacted, pulling blankets, touching people, physically attacking members of the family, especially one of the daughters. And it wasn't random. It seemed selective, intentional. Visitors came to witness it. Some left convinced something was there. Others left shaken, refusing to talk about what they experienced. One of the most repeated parts of the story involves Andrew Jackson. According to local accounts, he visited the property after hearing about the case. What happened during that visit was enough for him to leave abruptly and never return. But the detail that stayed with people wasn't the noise or the movement. It was the voice, because it didn't sound lost. It didn't sound confused. It sounded like it knew exactly what it was doing, like it had a purpose, and like it wasn't going anywhere. Older versions of the story end in a way that still unsettles people today. The activity didn't just fade, it stopped, abruptly, as if whatever was there decided it was done. And after everything that happened in that house, people started to realize something else. Some things don't stay in one place. Some things move, and sometimes they're already there before you even realize it. The Raven Mocker. Long before settlers arrived, before roads, before towns, these mountains already had warnings. Not written, not recorded, passed through generations of the Cherokee. And this is one of the most feared among them. The Raven Mocker. It's not described as an animal, and not exactly as a spirit either. Something in between. Something that comes when a person is close to death. Elders used to say you don't always see it. Sometimes you hear it first. A sound moving through the air. Fast, low, unnatural. Like something circling, watching, waiting. The belief was simple. When someone is weak and when their life is already fading, the Raven Mocker comes. Not to take it instantly, but to steal what remains, to extend its own existence. That's what made it different. It wasn't random. It chose. People who knew these stories didn't ignore the signs. They paid attention. Because if you heard it, or felt it near someone, it meant something had already started, and there was little that could be done. Some traditions say only certain individuals could recognize it, and even fewer could stop it. But most people just accepted it, because this wasn't treated like something you fight. It was treated like something you understand too late, and that's what made it feared. Not the sound, not the idea, but the timing. Because by the moment you realize what it is, it's already there. And even with all these warnings, some of the most unsettling ones aren't about death. They're about what's still out there, watching, waiting, long before you ever notice it. The haints. Not everything in the Appalachian Mountains stays in the woods. Some things stay closer, inside homes, around porches, near places people thought were safe. They're called haints, an old term used across the southern Appalachian region to describe spirits that never moved on. Not necessarily violent, not always visible, but present. People didn't describe them as monsters. They described them as something lingering, something that remained after it should have been gone. Older homes were often built with this in mind. There's a reason many porches in the South are painted a very specific color, a pale, soft blue, known as haint blue. The belief was simple: spirits wouldn't cross it. They would mistake it for the skies or for water and stay away. Whether that's true or not, the practice stayed. And that's what makes it unsettling, because it wasn't done once. It was repeated, across generations, across places that never spoke to each other. People who lived with these stories didn't try to prove anything. They adapted. They left doors slightly different, lights on longer than needed, certain rooms avoided at night. And when something felt off, they didn't investigate. They respected it. Because haints weren't treated like something you could remove. They were treated like something you lived around. Something that might not always show itself, but was still there. Quiet, unseen, close. The Tommyknockers. They heard knocking from inside the mountain, even when no one was there. It didn't come from outside. It came from deep inside the rock. Miners knew the difference. Underground, every sound means something. Tools hitting stone, timber shifting, footsteps from another crew. You learn the patterns fast, because down there, if you don't understand what you're hearing, you don't last. That's why this stood out. The knocking didn't match anything. Sharp, precise, deliberate. Coming from sections of the mine where no one was working. No tunnel open, no crew nearby, no reason for sound. And yet, it kept happening. Sometimes slow, one knock at a time, sometimes in sequence, like something trying to get attention. At first, some ignored it, just another sound in a place full of them, until the pattern started showing up. The knocking would come first, then something would change. Not immediately, but close enough. Rock shifting where it shouldn't, unexpected collapse, support beams giving way. And once people noticed that, they stopped treating it like noise. They treated it like warning. If the knocking started, you paid attention. Some would stop working right away. Others would leave that section completely. No hesitation, no argument. Because the ones who ignored it didn't always get the chance to explain what happened next. And then came the part no one liked to talk about. The sound getting closer, not louder, closer. Like whatever was making it was moving through the rock itself. Not digging, not breaking through. Just there, behind the walls. In places that weren't supposed to connect. Miners from different regions described the same thing. Same knocking, same pattern, same reaction. And none of them tried to explain what it was. They just gave it a name. The Tommyknockers. Not something you see. Something you hear, something that lets you know you shouldn't be where you are. And once something becomes a rule underground, passed between people who depend on each other to survive, it stops being a story. It becomes something you follow, whether you believe it or not. Because in a place where one mistake is enough, you don't ignore the sound that tells you to leave. The Platai. They saw it once and never described it the same way again. It never had a fixed shape. That's the first thing people noticed. Not because it changed in front of them, because no one could agree on what they saw. In older accounts from rural parts of Tennessee and Alabama, people described something moving at the edge of visibility. Always at night, always just far enough that you couldn't see it clearly. And when they tried to explain it, nothing matched. Some said it was low to the ground. Others said it stood upright. Some described something crawling. Others said it moved too smoothly for that. And the more people tried to describe it, the worse it got. Because the details never lined up. The only thing that stayed consistent was the reaction. They didn't stay. They didn't watch it long enough to understand. They left. Immediately. And they didn't go back to that area alone again. Not because they knew what it was. Because they didn't. And whatever it was, didn't need to be understood. It just needed to be seen once. The Night Doctors. They said people were taken at night, but no one ever proved who took them. It didn't start as a legend. It started as fear. People disappearing. At night. No noise. No sign of struggle. Just gone. In early Appalachian communities, especially isolated ones, stories started spreading about the night doctors, people who came in the dark, took bodies, used them. That part, history confirms in some places. But what doesn't line up is what people started describing later, because over time, it stopped sounding like people. Doors not forced open, no tracks, no witnesses. And yet, someone would be gone by morning. Some accounts say people started staying awake at night, listening, waiting, not to see anything, just to make sure nothing came inside. And what made it worse, no one ever proved who was responsible. Not fully. not consistently, which left something open, a gap between real events and what people believed was happening. And once that gap forms, it doesn't close, because when something real happens, and no one can fully explain it, people don't forget. They adapt. They stay awake longer. They lock things differently, and they make sure they're not the next one to find out. The boohag. They say it doesn't have a body, so it uses yours. This one was never told like a story. People don't sit down to explain it. They mention it when something already feels wrong. In parts of the southern Appalachians, especially through the Carolinas, there's an old warning that doesn't get explained. It just gets passed down. Don't sleep too deep. Don't ignore the feeling when you can't move. And if it ever feels like something is on you, don't let it stay. They call it the boohag, not a spirit in the way people expect, because it doesn't walk around. It doesn't show itself. It doesn't have a body. That's the part people don't like to say out loud. It needs one. And according to older accounts, it takes yours. Not forever. Not in a way you can prove. Just long enough. Most descriptions start the same way. You wake up, but you can't move. Not your arms. Not your legs. Not even your voice. You're fully aware, eyes open, but your body doesn't respond. And that's when it starts. The weight, right on your chest. Heavy, steady, holding you down. People try to breathe, but it feels like something is pressing the air out of them. They try to speak, nothing comes out. And then comes the part they don't forget. The feeling that something is there. Not in the room. On you. Close enough that you don't need to see it to know. Older generations don't treat that like imagination. They treat it like something real. They say the boohag rides you. That's the word they use. Not attacks. Not haunts. Rides. Like your body is something being used while you're still inside it. Some say they felt movement. Not theirs. Subtle at first, like something testing control. Others say it doesn't move at all. It just stays there, waiting, until it's done. And when it leaves, it doesn't make a sound. No footsteps. No sign. The pressure just disappears. And your body comes back. All at once. Like nothing ever happened. But something did. Because after that, people don't sleep the same. They don't ignore it again. And they don't call it a dream. Because the feeling is too specific, too consistent, too repeated across people who never spoke to each other. And that's why the warning stays simple. No explanation, no theory, just one rule. Don't let it ride you twice, because whatever it is, it doesn't need to be seen. It just needs you to be still long enough for it to use you. The Appalachian Mountains are full of stories, but the people who live there don't call them that. They call them warnings. Not because they understand what's out there, but because they've learned not to ignore it. And when the same rules survive for generations, in places where people depend on the land to stay alive, you start to question something. Maybe it's not about believing. Maybe it's about listening. Because whatever started these warnings never really needed to prove anything. It just needed people to remember